The woman you desire is waiting for something you don't yet know how to provide. Not gifts, not flattery, not the endless attention you keep offering. She's waiting for something deeper, something operating at the level of instinct. Here's what should concern you. She can't explain what she wants. Not because she's withholding, she simply lacks the words. These needs exist below language. She knows when they're met. She knows when they're not. But she cannot articulate the difference. Jung spent decades mapping the unconscious and discovered that people are driven by forces they cannot name. What I'm about to reveal are 7 such forces specific to female psychology. These aren't tricks or manipulations. They're fundamental human needs that have existed since the dawn of humanity. Evolution embedded them in women because satisfying them meant survival and continuation of the species. Men who understand these needs don't chase women. They become what women are biologically wired to seek. Men who don't understand remain perpetually confused, doing everything right while watching her choose someone else. Schopenhauer wrote that we can do what we want, but we cannot want what we want. Attraction isn't a choice. It's a response to triggers that activate ancient circuitry. Your task isn't to convince her to want you, it's to become someone who naturally triggers that response. This isn't about playing a role, like it's about development. A performer memorizes lines but remains unchanged inside. Women sense this gap between mask and substance. A man who has genuinely developed these qualities doesn't perform them. He embodies them. Women sense this too. Green noted that history's greatest seducers didn't use techniques. They cultivated themselves into people naturally desired. This video offers you not tricks to perform, but qualities to develop. Over the next minutes, I'll reveal 7 intimate needs of the female psyche. The first 3 operate at the surface level of daily interaction. The 4th and 5th work at the emotional level. Satisfy them and she begins to bond. The 6th and 7th operate at the soul level. Satisfy them and you become irreplaceable. But I warn you, with this knowledge comes responsibility. Machiavelli wrote that power is neutral. Fire can warm a house or burn it down. What I'm teaching you is fire. Use it for creation. Need 1. To feel chosen, not settled for. Every woman carries a question she rarely speaks aloud. Did he choose me, or did he simply accept what was available? This question is critical to how she experiences a relationship. Freud noted humanity's insatiable need to feel special. This isn't vanity, it's survival programming. In our evolutionary past, being chosen meant protection and resources. Being an option meant risk of abandonment when something better appeared. When a woman feels chosen, something in her relaxes. She can invest fully. When she feels like an option, she remains guarded. Most men fail here completely. They express interest generically, complimenting her looks the same way they'd compliment anyone. She senses she could be replaced without meaningful difference to him. Green documented that the most powerful seductions make the target feel singular. Not one of many, but the only one. This isn't flattery, it's recognition. You must actually see what makes her unique and communicate that you've seen it. A man named Thomas learned this lesson painfully. 42, successful, attractive. He dated regularly, but nothing lasted beyond a few months. Every woman left with the same explanation. I just don't feel it. The problem was that his compliments were interchangeable. You're beautiful, true, but meaningless when every man says it. What he never did was notice what made each woman specifically her. When Thomas began noticing specific things, everything changed. Instead of "you're beautiful," the way your eyes shift when you're genuinely interested, not just being polite, that's rare. Instead of "you're smart," most people think about that at surface level. You went somewhere I didn't expect. The shift wasn't in technique. It was in attention. Real attention to who she actually is. Jung wrote about individuation as the process of becoming one's true self. When you recognize her individuality, you offer something almost no one provides. the experience of being known. Warning: false specificity is worse than generic praise. If you manufacture observations you don't actually hold, she'll sense the manipulation. The goal isn't to say specific things, it's to actually notice specific things. Need 2. Emotional fluctuation. Here's a truth that will challenge everything you believe. Consistent positive attention doesn't create attraction, it kills it. Kahneman's research showed that we don't experience absolute states. We experience changes in states. That's why the millionaire doesn't feel wealthy. He's adapted. Only changes from baseline register emotionally. When you provide constant attention, you establish a baseline. That baseline quickly becomes normal, and normal generates no emotional response. Cialdini documented this as the principle of intermittent reinforcement, the most powerful schedule for generating psychological engagement. Casinos understand this. Slot machines pay randomly, and that randomness creates addiction where consistent payouts would create boredom. I'm not suggesting you manipulate through calculated withdrawal. I'm suggesting you live a life that naturally creates fluctuation. A man with his own purpose, passions, and world naturally varies in availability. His attention fluctuates not because he's playing games, but because he has a life. A man who makes a woman his sole focus has no natural fluctuation. He's always there. And this constancy, though it seems loving, creates the baseline problem. A man named Edward was devoted. He thought this was virtue. When with his girlfriend, his phone disappeared, friends understood he was unavailable. She left him for someone who gave significantly less. The answer was fluctuation. The other man had a band, friends who mattered, nights when he was simply unavailable. His attention was valuable because it wasn't constant. Critical distinction: manufactured scarcity is manipulation. Natural scarcity is authenticity. The first creates short-term response but long-term distrust. The second creates sustainable attraction. Practice. Build a life worth living independent of any relationship. Pursue goals, develop friendships, cultivate interests. Then fluctuation happens naturally. Need. 3. Strength. A woman's nervous system constantly evaluates one question: is this man strong enough? Not physically, psychologically, emotionally. Strong enough to hold his position under pressure. Strong enough to remain calm in the storm. Jung identified the animus as the masculine archetype in the female psyche. When a woman encounters a man embodying this archetype, something in her responds. She feels safe and can relax her own vigilance. What strength looks like in practice? She tests you, not consciously, instinctively. Says something provocative, criticizes something you value. These tests aren't cruelty, and they're evaluation. She needs to know if you'll break under pressure. The weak response is to agree, abandon your position to avoid conflict. This signals you can't be relied upon. The strong response is to hold, not with aggression or defensiveness, but with calm, grounded presence. I see it differently. I hear you, but I disagree. Epictetus taught that we don't control events, only our responses. When you respond to her test with centered calm, you demonstrate that your stability doesn't depend on her approval. That's strength. A man named Marcus didn't know he was constantly failing these tests. His girlfriend criticized his decisions. He immediately justified, apologized. He thought being a good partner meant agreeing. It was actually weakness. When he learned to hold his ground, everything shifted. She criticized his decision to spend a weekend with friends. Instead of canceling, he said, "I need that time with them. I'll miss you, but this matters to me." She pushed. He didn't escalate or collapse, remained calm. Later, she told him that moment was when she started respecting him more deeply. Need 4. Psychological safety. Strength without safety creates fear, not attraction. Many strong men fail here. They project power but not warmth. A woman may respect them but cannot fully open. She needs both. Psychological safety means she can be vulnerable without punishment. She can share fears without judgment. She can reveal her shadows without rejection. Freud understood that the unconscious carries material we hide even from ourselves. When a woman finds a man she can reveal this to, a bond forms that superficial relationships never achieve. What safety looks like in practice. She shares something shameful, a past mistake, an insecurity, a fear. The unsafe response is to judge, advise, minimize, or use the information against her later. Any of these teaches her that vulnerability with you is dangerous. The safe response is to receive without reaction, to hold her disclosure with the same calm you hold everything else, to communicate through presence that her shadows don't frighten you. Marcus Aurelius wrote about accepting the nature of things as they are. When you accept her nature, including her shadows, you offer what most men cannot: freedom from performance. The combination of strength and safety creates a rare psychological experience. She encounters a man strong enough to hold his position, yet safe enough to hold her vulnerability. This combination is rare. When she finds it, she recognizes its value. Need 5. To be witnessed in her becoming. Every person is in process. We're not static. We're constantly becoming. A woman needs a man who sees not just who she is, but who she's becoming. This differs from projection. Projection imposes your vision. Witnessing sees her vision and supports its unfolding. Most men don't witness when they evaluate. They approve of parts, disapprove of others. They see her as static. This evaluation stifles her. A man who witnesses says, "You're different than you were 6 months ago. More certain of yourself. I see it." He notices her evolution and names it. He becomes a mirror for her becoming. Green noted that people fall in love with those who make them feel like better versions of themselves. When you witness her becoming, you make her growth real, visible, validated. A man named Jonathan practiced this consciously. His partner was building a business, struggling with self-doubt. Instead of offering advice, he simply reflected, "You handled that client situation completely differently than you would have last year. You've changed." She said that moment meant more than any encouragement. Because he didn't urge her to be something, he recognized she was already becoming it. Warning: witnessing requires real attention. You can't pretend you saw growth you didn't notice. Need 6. To exist in his future. Connection without continuity creates anxiety. She can feel deeply bonded in the present, but uncertain whether that bond extends forward in time. She needs to exist in your future, not through promises, but through language that includes her and what comes next. Schopenhauer understood that the will reaches constantly forward. We're future-oriented beings. When you speak about future events and she's absent from that language, her nervous system registers threat. When you naturally include her, her nervous system registers safety. Excluding language sounds like, "When I move to that city." "After my project, I'm going to travel for a while." The future is populated by you alone. Including language sounds like, "When we try that restaurant opening next month." "I think you'd love that place. We should go sometime." Notice, including language doesn't require commitment. It requires acknowledgement. She exists in your consideration of what's to come. A man named David didn't know he was failing this need. He talked about his future constantly, but always in singular terms. His girlfriend felt growing insecurity despite everything else being positive. When David began naturally including her in future-oriented speech, her anxiety dissolved. Not because he promised anything, but because he stopped speaking as if she didn't exist in tomorrow. Need 7. To surrender to something greater. This is the deepest and least understood need. A woman needs to feel that surrendering to you means surrendering to something larger than a man. That your direction has direction. That your life serves something beyond comfort. Jung called this the need for meaning. Nietzsche called it the need for why. Without it, connection remains transactional. With it, connection becomes transcendent. When a woman fully invests in a man, she invests life energy, time, the capacity to create life itself. This investment requires justification at the deepest level. She needs to feel her investment is going somewhere meaningful. A man without purpose can offer comfort but not inspiration. A man with purpose offers direction. His life moves towards something, and when she invests in him, she invests in that movement. Nietzsche wrote that he who has a why can bear almost any how. A woman who understands your why can bear the difficulties every relationship inevitably contains. This isn't about prestigious goals, as it's about genuine ones. A man whose purpose is status or accumulation without meaning offers no real trajectory. His goals are empty. A man whose purpose is contribution, creation, growth offers genuine trajectory. Green documented that history's most magnetic figures weren't those with the most resources, but those with the most compelling visions. A man named Richard was successful by every external measure, wealthy, fit, socially connected, but his relationships never deepened past a certain point. Women would date him, enjoy the lifestyle, then leave for men with far fewer resources. What they wanted was direction. Richard had achieved but was no longer building. His life was maintenance, not creation. He'd arrived and stopped moving. When Richard reconnected with genuine purpose, when he began building again towards something that mattered, everything shifted. The woman who became his wife told him, "I didn't fall for your money or status. I fell for where you were going. I wanted to be part of that." You can't fake purpose. This need requires real development of a real vision for your life. Practice. Sit with the question, what do I want my life to mean? Don't answer quickly. Let the question work on you. When you find genuine purpose and begin orienting your life around it, something in you changes. You develop what Nietzsche called a coherent self, and that coherence is felt by everyone who encounters you. Conclusion. Now you know 7 intimate needs of the female psyche. 1. To feel chosen, not settled for. 2. Emotional fluctuation. 3. To encounter strength. 4. Psychological safety. 5. To be witnessed in her becoming. 6. To exist in his future. 7. To surrender to something greater. Each builds on the last, each goes deeper. Together they form a complete picture of what women seek, often without knowing how to articulate it. But let me be clear, these aren't switches to flip or tactics to deploy. They're qualities to develop within yourself. The development is the work. A man who has genuinely developed these qualities doesn't need to remember what to do. Right actions flow naturally from who he has become. This is the difference between the 1% and everyone else. 99% seek techniques, want shortcuts. The 1% understand there is no shortcut. They invest in becoming rather than performing. Jung wrote about the difference between persona and self. The persona is the mask. The self is who we are beneath it. Women are extraordinarily sensitive to the gap between them. When there is no gap, when what you present and what you are have merged through genuine development, trust becomes natural. You're not just learning psychology. You're learning to become capable of deep connection. And deep connection is one of the most meaningful experiences in human life. Schopenhauer noted that life alternates between suffering and boredom, but he also noted that genuine love provides respite from both. The capacity for that love is what you're building. Start with the first need. Practice genuine observation. Build a life around purposes that matter. Do the inner work that produces strength and safety. Practice witnessing. Speak of futures that include rather than exclude. And beneath all of this, choose development over performance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." The same applies here. Don't argue about what an attractive man should be. Become one. This video gave you the map. The journey is yours. Understanding without implementation is just entertainment. Implementation is where transformation happens. The woman you desire is waiting for someone who has developed these qualities. She won't find him among those who only perform. She's looking for the real thing. Become the real thing.